Yeah, it is another episode of the Autumn Windbags. RJ Clifford flying solo, just you, me. Bunch of comments here on the side. Chime in. I like doing these live shows. I'm going to start doing them every Tuesday, 12 o'clock on the West Coast, 3 o'clock on the East Coast. And then Soto does his one-on-ones over the weekend. So he'll start picking with us Saturday or Sunday. So you got some weekend time with Soto, some Tuesday time with me. Just killed a mosquito. Bam, midair. That's how you start a show. Murdering a mosquito before it sucked me dry. Chime in, guys. So a couple things off the top before I get to your questions and comments that you've left on YouTube pages and questions that you'll leave in the chat. First one, broadcasting carousel going on. Reports are that Troy Aikman is going to leave Fox and go to ESPN for reported $18 million. Same time, 78-year-old Al Michaels is being courted by Amazon, who's getting an NFL package. And Sean McVay, obviously Rams head coach, kind of teased a broadcasting situation, but I think he just leveraged that to get more money from the Rams as their head coach. So a lot of moving parts. Point being, there's a lot of money getting thrown at coaches to be broadcasters. Now, it used to be that if you were a player, coach, GM, whatever, your broadcasting gig came when you were fired or retired or quit or in transition or whatever, right? That used to be the case where the money to actually be in the NFL as a coach, as a player, as a whatever was so much more. And I imagine that was probably your passion, right? If you're playing in the NFL, you're coaching the NFL, that was what you want to do. And broadcasting is always this kind of allure of like, I can do that. And it's so much easier than being a coach or being a player, specifically time constraints. Like John Gruden had the best gig ever. He showed up for Monday Night Football and that was it. Got paid $13 million a year or whatever the number was. Like, that's a great deal. So it used to be that people would only go to broadcasting when they were already done with what they wanted to do. Now the money in broadcasting is so big that it's pulling active coaches, players, and other team officials out of the gig because there's just so much. Troy Aikman's going to get $18 million. $18 million. That would make him what? Top 5%, top 10% of active NFL players, salary-wise. Now, obviously, he's long since retired, but that's my point is, with Tony Romo's success at CBS and him kind of like retiring early, networks and players and coaches and GMs and whoever are thinking, man, I can get in on this broadcasting money. And I hate it. I hate the idea that Sean McVay, maybe the best coach in football, brilliant offensive mind, clearly makes the sport better, would bounce to just talking to a microphone about football. I hate that. I want all the talented people involved with football to be in the football part, not the broadcasting part. Now, I'm sure Sean McVay would be probably all signs point towards him being a good broadcaster, although we never know, right? You never know who's going to pan out and who isn't. But I would assume he's probably going to be a pretty good broadcaster. But I'd rather him in football. I'd rather him making the sport better instead of making the broadcast better. And the other part about this is, how screwed is John Gruden in all this? There's so much money getting thrown around in NFL head coaching positions and broadcasting positions, hell, college football head coaching positions. The money's just going up and up and up and up and up. And he got booted at just the wrong time. Right when the Raiders started going, they got a 10-win season, went to the playoffs. Right when, NFL head coaching salaries are skyrocketing, right when broadcasting deals are skyrocketing. Like, think about it. If those emails didn't come out, if John Gruden's emails didn't come out, and let's say he wanted to retire after this season, he'd make probably what Troy Aikman's making at ESPN. He'd make more money broadcasting than he would coaching for a tenth of the work. Adam Hill, when he came on this show months ago, said every time I was at the facility when John Gruden was the coach, I get there at 6 a.m., his car was there. I'd leave at 9 p.m., his car was there. I mean, Gruden was working 70, 80, 90-hour weeks. If he was broadcasting, he'd be paid more money for less work. Now, don't cry for Gruden. He's got, tens of millions of dollars, and I'm sure he's going to sue the NFL and get probably tens of millions more dollars. But what bad timing for John Gruden. All right, let's get to some of your questions. Actually, real quick. For those of you who don't know, I also work for the UFC. I'm going to be heading to Vegas tomorrow for UFC 272, Jorge Masvidal versus Colby Covington. It's a big grudge match. So real quick, Covington is going to massacre Jorge Masvidal. Absolutely destroy him. Covington is so active and such a good grappler that Masvidal can't handle it. Now, Masvidal has really good takedown defense, but what a lot of people don't sometimes recognize that that he's terrible against the cage. Like, he'll get stuck in these grappling positions where the other guy has a dominant position, and then he can't get out. And then that's when Covington just lives there and takes over and win rounds. So Covington's going to destroy Masvidal. There you go. That's your UFC fix during the Raiders Q&A. All right. First one. This was a comment on the interview that we did with Steve Cofield. And Soto, I was talking with Soto about the contract for Derek Carr and saying, he wants Derek Carr to get a really short contract. And I'm saying, no, you got to go big contract, long contract, because you got to lock these guys up because the price is only going up. And if things don't work out, we can trade them and we'll get a bunch of value there. And then he asked me, he's like, all right, well, we'll name the guys that were going to be it. And I named Wentz, and I couldn't name any more off the top of my head. Completely brain farted. Made myself look like a fool. And people started, talking trash in the comment section. Dominique 5 said, Soto stomped you, RJ. You literally could not name a quarterback this year. So I knew they existed. I just didn't know them off the top of my head. So here they are. And this is, again, in relation to giving Derek Carr a long contract versus giving him a short contract. I say long because there's no downside. Because if he doesn't work out, you can trade him, and quarterback contracts are worth so much, and quarterbacks are in such high demand that you'll find a buyer. You'll find a trade partner. No problem about it, right? And this is why. Last season, so going into the season we just had, so last offseason, these are some of the deals that went through. Carson Wentz went to the Colts, and they gave up a first and a third for a Carson Wentz who hadn't been good or even decent in multiple seasons. But because the Colts needed a quarterback so bad, they gave up a first and a third for Carson Wentz. Wentz probably won't even be on the team next season. That's how bad he was. We all kind of knew it. But, his former coach was there in the Colts, and there was some personnel at the Colts. They think they can turn him around. They think he can get him going. And what did he do? He caused a COVID epidemic, played below average, cost them a ton of money, and cost them a first and a third. Carson Wentz, one example. Next example, Sam Darnold to the Panthers. They got the Panthers gave up a second, fourth, and a sixth in exchange for Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold hasn't shown anything. At least with Carson Wentz, you can be like, all right, he was an MVP caliber quarterback at one point in his career. Maybe we can get him back there. Sam Darnold is none of those things. He showed us nothing in New York. And still, just got a second, fourth, and sixth round pick for Sam Darnold. And those are just trades. Here's another example of just how valuable the quarterback position is and how desperate teams will do whatever. The Bears gave Andy Dalton $10 million. Andy Dalton. $10 million to be their quarterback. Pats gave Cam Newton $5.1 million. That could have gone up to $14 million with incentives. They already know what they got with Cam. He'd already been there. He'd already done that. He'd already played. They knew exactly who he was. And still they gave him $5 million. That could be up to $14 million. Washington football team gave Ryan Fitzpatrick $10 million for a one-season, essentially, tryout. That's my point. I don't want to give all of our salary cap to Derek Carr either. I want to pay him as little as possible and be able to, extend and re-sign Max Crosby and Hunter Renfrow and, all these guys. I'm not trying. I don't get a percentage of Derek. I'm not Derek Carr's manager. I don't get a percentage of his salary. But I understand the economics of the quarterback position in the NFL. These guys go for a ton. No better example than Dak Prescott in Dallas. The problem, so Dak Prescott got 4 years, $160 million from the Cowboys. Okay. That made him the second highest paid quarterback behind Patrick Mahomes. Now, he's far from the second best quarterback in football. But the problem was the Cowboys' timing was off. Whoever signs their quote unquote overpays that quarterback. Remember when Derek Carr was the highest paid quarterback in football less than 4 years ago? He was the highest paid quarterback for like 20 minutes. And then Matthew Stafford got a contract. And the next guy got a contract. And the next guy got a contract. Fast forward less than 4 seasons forward, and he's going to be the 15th highest paid quarterback next season if he sticks with the same contract, which he won't, but just as an example. He went from number 1 to 15th in less than 4 seasons. If the Cowboys would have signed Dak Prescott 2-3 seasons ago, they'd be paying him 4 years, $120 million, $110 million, because that was the going rate and the economics for a quarterback at that time. And that's what I'm trying to get you guys in Soto to understand. Yeah, I don't want to give Carr $40 million, but if we sign him to a 5-year deal, hopefully at like 30, hopefully like 35, that's going to be a screaming deal 2 or 3 seasons from now. It'll be one of the best values. Derek Carr's contract next season, best values in football right now. Franchise quarterback for under 20 mil off a 10-win season, 5th in passing yards. Like, that's a great deal. 4 seasons ago, it felt like we overpaid. And so that's why I'm saying sign Derek Carr now, extend him now, long 5-year contract now. He's only 30, 5-year contract now. And it may hurt to begin, but the longer the contract is, the less per season you can do it, right? So if you sign to like a 2-year deal, they're going to want a ton of money and a ton of guarantees in that 2 years. But if you guarantee 5 years, they'll take a little less because it's guaranteed money on the back end. So 1, it'll be less per season. And 2, let's say worst case scenario, he completely flounders. Say worst case scenario, him, Josh McDaniels, Dave Ziegler, they just can't get along for whatever reason, which sounds impossible, right? Because Josh McDaniels is known for being great at getting whatever he can out of whatever quarterback that he has, right? So all signs point towards that they should be a good group, a good pairing. But let's say they're not. Worst case scenario. All hell breaks loose. The planets are in alignment. Rain's going up. Cats are chasing dogs. Derek Carr and Josh McDaniels don't work out. You trade him. You locked him up for 5 years. You trade him. If Wentz can get a 1st and a 3rd, you can get more than that for Carr. If Sam Darnold can get a 2nd, 4th, and a 6th, you can get more than that for Carr. Now, I know his contract will be bigger than Darnold's, sure, but you're still going to get value. That's way better than signing him for 2 years and either just losing him because he's a free agent and we don't want him and getting nothing for him, or signing him for 2 years and him and Josh McDaniels fire off great. And we had this awesome offense. And then you got to pay him more 2 seasons from now. The price for a quarterback, it's only going up. It's only going up. Lock up Derek Carr now. Hopefully he pans out, and we got a great quarterback for the next half decade. Or it doesn't work, and you trade him for a ton of value. The worst thing we can do is have to have this exact conversation 2 seasons from now. He's going to want more. Just wait until Joe Burrow's first contract comes up. Just wait until Justin Herbert's first contract comes up. These guys are going to be making 40, 50. Watch. I bet you Joe Burrow's contract, when it comes up in a couple years, you're looking at $55 million a year for Joe Burrow. Watch. And that's why I'm saying sign him up now. And I just gave you all the examples. Love C4 ever. Okay, so the comment about Zay was poor, RJ. Y'all hyping on Waller. Why? The thing about Waller is he crapped on the team. And what this team needs is people who will improve, get yards after catch. How much does Waller do that? Yep, Devontae Adams would be the ultimate catch as a wide receiver, but you need to look at people who can catch Carr's balls and not just go down once they do catch them. That is if Carr is still a Raider. LOL. This team does not want Juju Smith-Schuster. Antonio Brown, Juju, same crap. Sad what comes out of Pittsburgh for wide receivers. Okay. So he's responding to a comment when I said, Zay Jones, I want to keep him, but he shouldn't be a starter. for the Raiders. Like if he's starting, we have problems. That means Henry Ruggs is out. Darren Waller's like Zay Jones. I'm glad he's a Raider. Great locker room guy. He's obviously got a great connection with Derek Carr. A lot of good things about Zay. Not a great wide receiver. It's not great. I mean, how many deep balls did Zay Jones like do one of these? And the ball's like over there. Happened way too often. Way too often. I think that's how Derek Carr got all those offensive or defensive pass interference penalties. Because Zay Jones is going like this. And so the DB's like bumping into him too. And so he got all those penalties, right? Zay was on the receiving end of a lot of those. But he's just not, if he's starting for us, like there's a problem. And this whole thing about Waller, y'all are hyping on Waller. Why? Because he's one of the best tight ends in football. And this whole thing, like, crapped on the team. That was a rumor that was going around based on nothing. Nothing. If you're going to turn on one of the most beloved and best players on our team, make sure you have a really good reason. Make sure it's not because of rumor that you're going to be like, oh, Darren Waller. Oh, man. Fuck him. He crapped on the team. Like, what? Seriously? Like, you're going to break up with a playmate because, I don't know, you heard a rumor that she likes the Chiefs? You don't even ask her? Come on. This is going to be so fired up, I'm starting to sweat. Hold on. I promise it's not some big reveal. Literally just sweating. All right. Soto gets angry and immediately gets childish and insulting. Yelling doesn't make him right. You get him every time with facts, RJ. Soto's a passionate fella. And honestly, with Derek Carr, I think we agree on a lot more than we disagree. It's just because the disagreement is so passionate, that's what we focus on. Like we both agree on, 85% of what makes Carr good and bad, right? Beautiful deep ball, brilliant before the snap, great locker room guy, great team leader, strong arm. He's got serious fumble problems. His interceptions have gone up. He's gotten a lot better in All right. Am I back? How we looking? Looks like I'm back. You guys didn't leave me, did you? All right. Beautiful. All right. Tattoo by Matt. Soto gets angry and immediately gets childish and insulting. Yelling doesn't make him right. You get him every time with facts, RJ. Well, this is the problem, Tat. It's not, if I got mad at him and yelled at him, it gets him less pissed off than if I bring him facts. You know what I'm saying? Nothing bothers somebody more than when you prove them wrong. If I just name called at him and just yelled at him, hey, you dumbass, you're wrong, like he'd just be able to roll with it. But when I throw facts at him, I get this.
Oh, I'm not saying anything. Derek Carr can come and I will suck his dick.
That's the Soto I get when I throw facts at him. What can you do? What else do we got? All right. Raiders draft class ranked. So NFL.com did a ranking of draft classes. And obviously, when your number one pick ain't great, it reflects on the whole thing, right? Like if a team's quarterback isn't good, the team doesn't appear. It doesn't look good, right? Like the Broncos are a Super Bowl caliber team if they can get a good quarterback, but they're the joke of the AFC West. The Colts are a Super Bowl caliber team. They had 7 Pro Bowlers if they can get a quarterback, but they don't. So they didn't even make the playoffs. They lost to the Jaguars in the final game. Got their ass pounded by the Jaguars in the final game of the season. And that's kind of the same thing with draft classes. If your number one pick is awesome, people just kind of skirting through and looking at draft classes, they think, oh, it's a great draft class. And so because Alex Leatherwood didn't do great, it kind of reflected on our entire draft class. We kind of feel like, oh man, Mayock, that's why he got fired. Oh man, Gruden, he didn't know how to draft because, Alex Leatherwood. I mean, and even then, Alex Leatherwood didn't play well. He got moved from tackle to guard. He was playing so poorly, also because we lost some guards. But at least he played 17 games. He started for us the entire year, and he got a little better. Again, not a win. That's not who I wish we would have drafted. We can go back in time. We obviously wouldn't draft Alex Leatherwood, but at least he played. At least he wasn't like a Damon Arnett or Henry Ruggs trouble. At least we didn't trade him away, right? Like at least he wasn't a problem in the locker room. He was a below average starter, but even a below average starter that plays 17 games is better than a lot of draft picks the Raiders have had, right? But all in all, the first pick wasn't that great. However, beyond that, it was a great draft class. Here's what Shook of NFL.com had to say. The Raiders' biggest swing and miss came with their most valuable pick. Most everyone saw Leatherwood as a player who was taken ahead of where his evaluation suggested he should have been, and he ended up playing as such. Blah, 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 blah. As for the rest of the class, a good portion stepped up at different times. Trevon Moore was an effective player for nearly the entire season, finishing with a top 25 PFF grade among all safeties. And we can talk about, Kuntz was a late bloomer, but he had 2 sacks. Divine Diablo is a starter now. He's going to be our starting linebacker next season. He took the starting job this season. Nate Hobbs, obviously he's got his behind the wheel of a car issues, but he played fantastic for us at slot corner. And even Morrissey, like Jimmy Morrissey, who was our 7th round pick, we cut him. He started 5 games for Houston. He went to the Texans. He suited 5 games, started 4. So even like our 7th round pick was a starter on another team. So you go Trayvon Moehrig, starting safety, played almost every single snap of the defense. Malcolm Kuntz came along late. He'll be something for us. Divine Diablo became a starter. Nate Hobbs, starter. These are all rookies. And what does that mean? Well, 1, it means according to them, we had the 11th highest graded draft class. And 2, this is the first time in a while that I can say we're coming off a good season with a good team, good personnel, and a recipe for sustained success. So often, like the trends right now in the NFL are start from scratch, start over, start from the roots of the foundation, work our way up, or buy everything, gamble the future to win right this second, like the Rams did. Like the Colts kind of tried to do with Wentz, but couldn't. And like some other teams, and like the Buccaneers did 2 seasons ago with Brady, Gronk, and that whole that whole roster, right? That's been the trend, right? The Raiders are on a beautiful middle ground where there's certainly holes on the team, holes in the roster. Let's get better at guard. Let's, their corner. There's things we got to work on for sure. But we have a bunch of second-year players that are going to be great, a franchise quarterback, a bunch of really good key players still on rookie contracts, that it's not so much we got an amazing team that's all going to get old together and then we have to start over. It's we have a bunch of good guys that if you run a great franchise, perfect case scenario, as your stars get a little older and start to taper off, new guys come in on the back end to refill. right? That's the perfect way to do it. If you're drafting awesomely, handling free agency perfectly, good with the cap, good with your draft classes, that's what you want. And this is where the Raiders are right this second. Now, they can certainly screw it up in the future. I'm not saying this is going to happen. Lord knows the Raiders made plenty of mistakes with their personnel over the years. But the Raiders are in a position right now to be good now and good in the future because of the age of their stars, contracts that are set up, etc. And it all starts with a really, really good draft class last season. You see Eric, Pharaoh talking to each other. What's up? That's assault FA. Broncos grabbing Rodgers. Why would you even put that out there? I literally, no joke, I literally had a nightmare about that the other day, that the Denver Broncos were able to get Aaron Rodgers. Like, I didn't wake up in a cold sweat and like immediately hug my wife and tell her to promise me it's all going to be okay. But I wanted to. And then what's scary is I truly believe that Aaron Rodgers is going to stay in Green Bay. I think he's just waiting because he likes the attention. He likes to drag it out. I think he wants to wait and make sure Devontae Adams gets his bag in Green Bay first and use kind of his leverage to do that. I don't think he's leaving Green Bay. But let's say he does. If he does leave Green Bay, Broncos are a pretty damn good-looking spot, right? Broncos are a pretty appetizing place for him to be, right? Good defense. Got some weapons. They're basically just one good quarterback away from being really good. They're one all-time great quarterback away from being scary good. I mean, think what the quarterbacks would be in the AFC West if Aaron Rodgers went to Denver. Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr. Derek Carr's a 3-time Pro Bowler, and he would be by far the worst quarterback in the division. That would suck. Don't even put that out there, Hefe. I don't even know why I put that on there as a thing. It's gross. DeRaider, I think RJ and Soto are both right on Carr. Is DC a great quarterback? Absolutely. There's never been the issue, though. To me, the issue was, did he fit John's system? And he didn't. I would disagree that he didn't fit John Gruden's system. I think he was Derek Carr's a soldier. He does what he's told to the best of his ability, and he'll work his ass off to do it. Yes, sir. No, sir. Okay, sir. I think Derek Carr was exactly like the goods and bads of a John Gruden system, plus Derek Carr's fumbling, right? Had to have driven John Gruden nuts. And he wanted Derek Carr to be more scrambly, not so much like, being like Michael Vick and being a running quarterback, but he wanted him to be able to move in the pocket better, which he did, but that comes with more fumbling. So I think he was exactly the good and the bad that comes from a Gruden offense. Like, he was smart enough to be able to handle how in-depth his offense is. He can make all those throws, but Derek Carr flourishes. Like, why is he such a great comeback quarterback? Because when he's just slinging the rock like he did at Fresno, that's when he's kind of at his best. 4 verts, wide open spread offense. Like, that was him at Fresno State. And that's what made him special. Like, that's what made him a second-round pick. An 8-year starting quarterback from the WAC. That's what made Derek Carr Derek Carr. And that's so anti-John Gruden unless it's absolutely necessary, right? Unless you're down by 10 points with 4 minutes left. Then Carr can be Carr, and that's kind of when he's at his best. That's what we were hoping would happen when John Gruden was fired or resigned, whatever he did. And then you had Olsen as the offensive coordinator. All right, let Derek Carr make all the decisions here. Let Derek Carr run the offense he wants to run. So, but also, like, it stymied Derek Carr because Gruden is like maybe the most conservative head coach in football when he was coaching, right? 4th and 1, punt. 4th and 1 on the 11, punt. Field goal. Don't go for it, right? So here's hoping that Josh McDaniels is more flexible than John Gruden. John Gruden always coached the team that he wished he had, whereas Josh McDaniels is good at coaching the team that he does have. Like, John Gruden wanted the team to be in his own image. That's why Amari Cooper was gone. That's why Khalil Mack was gone. These guys weren't going to bow to John Gruden. They weren't going to kiss the ring. And maybe they didn't fit schematically. We had a Pro Bowl tight end that he let walk because he wanted something very, very specific. Gruden only does Gruden. Whereas Josh McDaniels, he's known for the opposite. LOL, Rodgers needs to leave Green Bay. Raiders should grab Watson. Man, we'd have some battles. Deshaun Watson, it's funny how last year, no one was going to take Deshaun Watson. He's got those 50 civil cases of sexual misconduct, and no one's going to touch him until that's handled, until that's done. A year later, still not figured out, still no resolution, still no light at the end of the tunnel. But now Deshaun Watson's back being talked about. What did I say earlier? Quarterbacks change everything. They change the economics. They change the rules. Do you think any team would touch with a 10-foot pole a guard or a safety that was going through the troubles of Deshaun Watson? Not a chance. Not a chance. I love great game in the AFC West. Used my Manscaped this morning, and I'm minty fresh. Yeah, this is actually, we're still not, man, Manscaped's getting a free sponsorship. Good for them. I just happen to have this t-shirt, and I was wearing it. Gru likes a mobile, conservative play extender. That's not DC's game. DC's a gunslinger who loves to throw the ball down the field. For me, as long as Gru was coach, then you got to go another direction. Well, DC started to become a little bit better of a, I have to go higher to make sure. These long ones make me disappear. All right, maybe we'll just be like Wilson from Home Improvement, where you don't see my mouth, so you don't know who I am. That's how I'm going to answer this question. So, Derek Carr became a better play extender. He really did. You can tell that, during Hard Knocks, you saw the video of John Gruden, acting like he's the defensive end and his 50-year-old fat ass is just chasing Derek Carr, right? That was actually a really good coaching moment. That was a really good, oh, that's something creative a coach is doing to really drive something home. And this is, I think, one of the big problems that Josh McDaniels, all right, let's see my face. I think that's one of the problems that Josh McDaniels had in Denver and with the Patriots and wherever he's been, is he's like, all right, quarterback, I need you to do X, Y, and Z. As opposed to, hey, quarterback, let me get you to want to do X, Y, and Z. Let me motivate you to do X, Y, and Z. I've learned a lot through, I've cornered fighters. I was a high school wrestling coach. I've read corporate books when I've started some businesses. And I've by no means an expert, but I've read a lot of experts. Telling someone to do something can be effective. Getting somebody to want to do something or to think it was their idea is the most effective. So John Gruden telling Derek Carr, hey, I want you to be better in the pocket and extend plays better. Okay, Carr's a soldier. He'll work on it. But having John Gruden line up in a 3-point stance as defensive end, chasing him and yelling at him, with Carr's kind of evading him with a smile on his face, gets Carr kind of excited about it. Gets him thinking about it more. It's less homework, less chore, excuse me, and a little bit more playtime. A little bit more hey, we're doing this together. Why do generals in wars go on the front lines? You're the most valuable person in this war. Why are you right in the hail of gunfire? Why are you right there, risk dying? And you hear George Washington led his troops. Napoleon Bonaparte led his troops. He was in the front line, waving his sword. Let's go. Let's kill him. Why do they do that? Motivates the troops. When you're there with your leader, it feels like you're part of it. That's someone you want to win for. There's a difference between being a leader and being an authority. Being an authority is just a designation. I designate you boss. I hereby knight you head coach of the Raiders. Bam, you're an authority. But being a leader is a very different skill set. Being a leader is being someone that people want to do things for. Being a leader is putting you, in the shit with everybody else and feeling I want to win for this guy. I'll do what this guy says. And I think that was Josh McDaniels' problem. Might still be his problem, hoping it's not. But I think that was always Josh McDaniels' problem, is he knew the X's and O's. He knew how to communicate what he wanted. But to be a leader and to get people to want to do it was his big problem. And he's been very open about that. Like I've said 100 times, It's one thing for Josh McDaniels to flourish under the Patriots umbrella. When the Patriots are running a tight ship, everyone's disciplined. Yes, sir. No, sir. No, sir. It's like the Marines over there. And so when you say, do this, do that, they do it. When you're on other franchises that maybe don't have the same culture or the same structure, you can't just boss people around and have it and get your best results. You need to be able to motivate, and different people are motivated differently. Some people need to be yelled at. Some people need to be complimented. Some people need action. Some people need you there. Some people don't want you there. Josh McDaniels is going to have to figure that out. DC's first 4 seasons, Raiders were 1st, 8th, and 13th in red zone efficiency. 4 years in Gruden's system, 22nd, 23rd, 23rd, and 27, 28th-ish. Yeah, that's something that's been brought up a lot. In that first season, the Raiders were awful and still first in the red zone. They didn't get there very often. It was a rare chip. Maybe that was part of it. They never got there, so when they did, they were all excited. Like, let's not blow this. Let's get a touchdown because we're probably not going to get here again this season. Remember that year they had like the worst rushing offense in football? That Derek Carr's first season, just to give you an example of just how the trash teams Derek Carr's been on. That first season, I think it was at week 10, the Raiders were projected to not have 1,000 yards rushing total. 1,000 yards rushing on the season. They were projected. Now they picked up some rushing yards later on. So they got over it. But think about that. Week 10, they couldn't even rush for 1,000 yards as a team. Not one guy, not having 1,000-yard rusher, not having 1,000 yards rushing as a team. That's how bad that offense was. That's how bad that whole team was. So yeah, I'm with you. I think Gruden's, there's a lot of factors to it, right? I think Gruden's conservativeness and predictable play calling, big part in the red zone. Gruden is just inflexible. Like, he's great in between the 20s, right? When you're moving in, that 60 yards in the middle, like, he's great because he can just be Gruden. But I think he just kind of tightened up. Like, his playbook got so tiny in that red zone that he couldn't figure it out. What else we got? William Merchant. We had caught up to the Queefs and we're beating quality AFC teams. Gruden's plan was working. I mean, we were, 3-0, then 5-2. And I think we're forgetting, like, the wins didn't look as good later on, but that Ravens win on Monday Night Football, huge. That Steelers win the next week, huge. Got to 3-0. We'll never know, right? We'll never know what would happen if Gruden stuck around. Because remember, after Gruden, resigned / got fired, we won 2 games in a row. We're like, wow, like, this is, maybe we got something here. And I certainly think there were parts of, I think a lot of the good things, like, Gruden wasn't terrible for Derek Carr. Like, he got him to do some things pretty well. Like, I think he made him a lot smarter pre-snap. He got him to be a little bit better in the pocket, things like that. And I think that stuck with Carr. I think it's going to stick with Carr moving forward. If Derek wins us a superb owl, how torn do you think the fan base will be? Might be a little awkward after all the slander, like having your ex DJ your wedding. Well, look, if your ex is the best DJ in town, you let her do the wedding, right? I think there'll be a lot of I told you so's for sure if Derek Carr takes us to the Super Bowl. But I think when you've dug in, like some people have dug in, you'll be able to excuse anything. There are so many stats in football and specifically for quarterbacks that you could point to anything. If we get Devontae Adams and our line gets better and our defense plays great next season and we go to the Super Bowl, that's what everyone's going to say. Oh, yeah, it wasn't Derek Carr. The rest of the team. Derek Carr is so bad, he needed Devontae Adams, and he needed a great old line, and he needed an amazing pass rush, and he needed XYZ. He needed Josh McDaniels. You'll hear that, for sure. But here's the thing. Name one quarterback who's won a Super Bowl that didn't need a ton of people helping him. I'll wait. Like, it just doesn't happen. This idea like, oh, well, Derek Carr needs a good deep. Tom Brady had Belichick's defense forever. And he played in a trash conference. And he had a great owner. And he had Gronk. And he had Randy Moss. And he had Wes Welker. Like, you don't win in football without having the best of everything. It almost never happens. Look at all the past Super Bowl winners. All the past Super Bowl winning quarterbacks. None of them did it by themselves. Every one of them needed something. So that's the idea, like, well, Derek Carr, he's not the guy. He needs too much. Every quarterback needs a lot. Josh McDaniels' offense fits Derek Carr better. Well, that's the thing about Josh McDaniels' offense. It moves. It's fluid. It changes. It's based on whoever. Like, his offense has been run by Tom Brady, Mac Jones, Cam Newton, Garoppolo. Like, he's won with every different type of quarterback you can imagine. Veterans, rookies, running guys, stationary guys. He's won with everybody. He's found an offense to be successful with anybody. And that should be exciting. Like, he's got his themes, right? He's got his tendencies and what he does. And there's certain staples of his offense. A lot of 21 formations, things like that, which is great with our running back room. But his flexibility with his offense, changing to the personnel and not changing the personnel to fit you, but changing yourself. Like, what's easier to do? Like, what's more valuable? A head coach or an offensive coordinator that has an amazing offense, but he needs a very specific personnel set to do it? Or a guy who can take any personnel set and change his offense accordingly? Like, it takes millions of dollars and a ton of GM's time and cap space and trades and all this stuff to alter your personnel. Like, that's what John Gruden did. He completely altered the Raiders. It wasn't a bad team that Gruden took over. There were good players on that team, but they weren't his guys fitting his scheme. And so it got expensive. It cost Reggie McKenzie his job. It cost Mike Mayock his job. But with Josh McDaniels, it's all right. What do you got? I got an offense that can work. I was talking about running backs. I had this conversation with Soto last night. I went to his Muay Thai gym to work out. So, like, my left leg's killing me. I got bruises all over from leg kicks. Anyway, we were talking about, like, the red zone and getting better in the red zone. He's like, you know what? I wish we had just, like, a bruising running back, like a bruiser for those short years. Because I was saying I think we should have ran the ball more in the red zone. He's like, man, I wish we had, like, a bruiser type running back. And I'm like, well, we'll have Ingold do it. He's like, well, Ingold's not that big. I'm like, look at our running back room. We've got one of the most expensive running back rooms in football. We actually have a fullback, which most people don't, right? Josh Jacobs, Jalen Richard, you know. We got an expensive running back room. We can't add a bruiser on top of that. You know what I mean? Like, we got 4 guys. Like, all right, let's find our next, Jerome Bettis. It's like, no, we don't need that many guys. I really wish our running back room, again, love I think Kenyon Drake can be good for us. Jalen Richard's been around for a while. Everyone swears by him. Josh Jacobs, obviously Pro Bowler, plays great, plays hard. Ingold, fan favorite, teammate favorite. But I wish we had a real big home run guy. And I wish we had a better bruiser. Instead of having like 4 guys that kind of flow between all of them, I wish we had just like a guy that can blast through a line. And I miss having like home run threats for running games. Was it Josh Jacobs' longest run, not this season that just ended, but the one before, was 28 yards. Longest run of the season, 28 yards. This is a guy that got hundreds of touches. Not last season, but the one before. Hundreds of touches. And that was his longest, was 28 yards. I mean, that takes away a lot of the value of the running game. Like obviously the running game, it's, set up third and short, keep the defense honest, take pressure off your quarterback, let your linemen bully people. Like the run game has a lot of benefits to it, right? But one of the big benefits that make it valuable is, hey, I can do this super safe, just like power run play or zone read, and maybe he breaks for 60 and gets a touchdown. Maybe that happens, right? That's one of the things that can happen every single time you hand the ball off. Maybe we'll break it for 60 and get a touchdown, right? Happens multiple times a week in the NFL. Not with the Raiders. Doesn't happen with us. We don't get breakaway touchdowns in our run games. I wish we would. D Sims from the town. We need to get a bigger running back. Well, like I said, I think our fullback should be able to do it. I mean, we're one of the few teams in football with a fullback. Why can't he do it? And that's just kind of how I'm also a big fan too of the way trends are going. Do the opposite because you get value there, right? So like if the trend for offensive line in the NFL is giant, huge power linemen, right? Just big hulking guys, like what the Raiders had 2 seasons ago. Like Trent Brown, Gabe Jackson, Rodney Hunt, right? Just big, hulking, expensive bruisers. If that's the trend, then that means guys that fit that profile are going to be more expensive because everyone wants that type of lineman, right? And that was the direction that the NFL was going. Just big, hulking guys that can protect quarterbacks and get short yardage. So what do the Niners do? They went and got a bunch of smaller, super mobile linemen who can get guys open on the edge. You have a pulling guard, beat the running back to the hole. You can have a tackle that can seal block and get up to the second level and still be nimble enough to be able to chase down a cornerback and get the block. And now they're unexpensive. Like it's a line that isn't that expensive based on how much they're producing because they're getting guys that not a lot of people want. Small, mobile linemen instead of big, hulking linemen. And so that's just smart economics and understanding kind of the landscape of the NFL. Is there's talent out there, but you want to get talent that's not noticed. It's kind of like NFL's version of Moneyball, right? Everyone wants the home run hitter with a pretty swing, but really you just want guys to get on base. At the end of the day, that's the goal. Every time you're at bat, get on base. Who can do that, right? Same thing with football, right? Who can score touchdowns? Who can stop touchdowns, right? With running backs being so undervalued, it's like, yeah, don't pay running backs a lot. You can get them for cheap. Like Devontae Booker played great for us. He was cost us like $800,000. It's chump change in the NFL. Get guys that are undervalued. And that's what the Raiders have been so bad at for so long. Not understanding value of either draft picks or players or trades. They fall in love and say, I want that guy. I love that guy. I want him. I don't care what it takes. And that was Gruden. And to a lesser extent, the Raiders in general, the last little bit. As opposed to, hey, let's read the market. Let's read the tea leaves. Which player is desperate to get rid of a guy? Let's grab him. Hey, who on our roster is just okay, but we can get a lot of value for, even though we love him? Let's see what the trade market's like for that guy. We're going to find out real quick if Dave Ziegler and company can do that, if they've got that eye. Because remember, even under Belichick, he really wasn't that amazing of a drafter. He really wasn't. He wasn't even that amazing at acquiring free agents. He really wasn't as great as people thought he was. What he did do is 2 things. One, the teams were so good that guys played better, right? If you're playing in a good system, if you're a running back and you're playing behind a better line, you're going to look better, right? If you're a cornerback and your defense is getting a ton of pressure on the quarterback, it's going to make you look better, right? So there's that part. And 2, What Belichick is so good at is knowing his own players, knowing when a guy's value is getting real high and then trading him before he starts to kind of plateau down, trading him when they're at their peak. That's what's great about it. Like when Al Davis, Mark Davis told the story of telling his son, Mark Davis, that you'd be a bad GM because you love players too much. Like you fall in love with the human and you forget about like these are assets, like these are pawns on our chessboard. That's how you have to treat them to find success. That's Belichick. Belichick knows how to treat these guys as assets, not as human beings where like you care about them, you want to stick them around because they're your buddies. William Merchant, how many roster spots do you want to take up for a one-trick pony? The line needs to do its job. Yeah. We don't want one-trick ponies. I do want a breakaway running back. The guy that at least there's a risk. Like there's a chance they're going to be able to get somebody. Like, get a touchdown. Hefe KC, what McDaniels doing different when he was... Hefe, you got to work on your English, man. I mean, heaven forbid I'm going to be some like, typist or like an editor. What McDaniels doing different when he was in Denver? I'm going to guess what you're saying is, what is McDaniels doing now that's different than when he was in Denver? I'm going to go with that one. I think that's what you were asking, Hefe. So right now we don't know, right? He hasn't been here long enough. And this has been the big question between me and Soto, because Soto is overly confident and superly optimistic that he's learned from all of his mistakes and he's going to be better in Las Vegas. Whereas I'm cautiously optimistic, but there's no evidence to say that he's changed. Because this is the big thing, right? This is what always happens when a coach from New England goes somewhere else. They always fail. Every time. Why? Because thriving under a good culture that's already there is very different than starting a new culture fresh. Ironically, Brian Flores is the only guy that found success, and now he's no longer a head coach. And we all know what's going on with him. So this is my thing. If I'm, again, cautiously optimistic, and from what Josh McDaniels has said in interviews and stuff, leads me to believe that he's got the self-awareness to know how he screwed up in Denver and also with the Rams. It's like, hey, I know my X's and O's. I know my football. I just don't know people. And I've made that a priority. Vic Tafer of The Athletic, been a guest on our show, did a really good article talking to Josh McDaniels' dad about Josh McDaniels and his upbringing and how he approaches football. And I guess McDaniels has this folder of all the ways he screwed up in Denver and how to fix it. Like he literally has like a binder that he carries with him. And like, this is how I fucked up. This is how I'm going to do better. So he's certainly making it a priority, which again leads me to be cautiously optimistic. But here's the thing. Let's say, and I don't even want to put it out there, but let's say hypothetically that Josh McDaniels is a failure with the Raiders, right? We have back-to-back seasons. We're trash. He just didn't work. I just feel like it's going to be too easy in hindsight at that point to say we should have saw this coming. He failed in Denver under 2 seasons. Then he went to the Rams as offensive coordinator after that, and they had the worst offense in football under Josh McDaniels. Like Josh McDaniels has literally failed everywhere he's been in the NFL except the Patriots. Fact. Now, again, that doesn't mean he can't do better. I hope he's going to do better. I hope he's improved. I hope he's changed. It sounds like he is. He literally has a binder saying, how do I not be a fuck up anymore? Like he's doing all the right things, and I hope he's going to. But if he doesn't work out, we're going to be able to look back and say, we should have saw this coming. We should have saw this coming because he's literally failed everywhere except in New England. Marcus Howard, anyone who wants DC gone needs to go. You're either with us or against us. This is the difference between fans being able to talk about their quarterback and a GM dealing with their quarterback. Fans can simply say, I'm over Derek Carr, beat it, DC. I'm over Derek Carr, trade him, gone. He's out of here. They can make that emotional decision. GMs, on the other hand, have to think, okay, if I now don't have my 3-time Pro Bowling quarterback, now what? Now what? Are you going to forfeit? If we get rid of Derek Carr and don't replace him with somebody better, we are punting on next season. After a 10-win playoff season with all of our draft picks, with a ton of cap space, if we get rid of Derek Carr without improving the position, we're punting on next season. Coming off of, at worst, the second best season of the last 20 years. Think about that. Instead of thinking, man, how do we change everything after last season? It's how do we keep doing what we did last season? It was the second best season in 20 years. It's a massive success. Now, it's time to build on it, right? Look, I'm still firmly of the club that like all 53 positions on the roster are up for grabs if you can replace them with somebody better. Every single position. If someone's better and it makes sense, get them. Same with Derek Carr. If there's a plan to replace Derek Carr with somebody better, I'm signing off on it. 100%. Derek Carr's been great for us. And if he went to a decent place, Derek Carr might be better off, considering all the shit he's had to put up with in Oakland and Las Vegas. But to just, get rid of him, I'm over him. Like, he's not the guy. Replace him with somebody better or F right off. Do you think Leatherwood can be coached up so we can focus on wide receiver 1 and the defense? Short answer, yes. He's got all the physical tools. He's got a lot of bad habits. It depends where we put him, right? Is he going to stay at guard? Is he going to move back to right tackle? And he was drafted. Even the people that overdrafted him knew he was a project when they did, right? They knew that he was a guy that wasn't, there's certain guys you draft and you're like, all right, we're going to build this guy into something. And there's certain guys you draft that are like, all right, this guy's ready to rock. And we use the Colton Miller example all the time, right? His first year was rough. Wasn't as bad as Leatherwood, and he was hurt the whole season, and he panned out to be great. So I'm not giving up on Leatherwood, and he's going to get every benefit of the doubt, right? Every benefit of the doubt, because he was a first rounder. Hefe. Hey, a little better reading comprehension. Raiders haven't signed Carr. Red flag. Is it? We haven't even gotten to the combine yet. We're still over a month away from the draft. The season just ended a couple weeks ago. Like these things, these are $100 million contracts. They don't happen overnight. It's got to be signed off by Mark Davis, GM, coach, legal, straight to the top, back down again, revisions, negotiate. And then all that has to happen on Derek Carr's side. Carr has to like it. His agent has to like it. His business manager has to like it. His accountant has to like it. Has to go through all those layers. And that's only after they negotiate and reach some kind of common ground. Like these things take time. There's no reason to rush it. Don Phillips, why aren't the defensive coaches on Raiders' website? Are they waiting until whole staff in place? I mean, I think you'll find out the detachment between like a big corporation or big organization and their like digital department. Not as fluid as you might think. I think you're reading way too much into it if you're like, wait a minute, why isn't it there? It's like, yeah, it's probably the intern whose job to do it is really hungover. So he's waiting. Can we draft for Amik Robertson? Inches of height. Diego Fuego 02. Love the name. All right, that's been about an hour. I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you, everybody who chimed in. Had a great time. Again, I'll be back here every Tuesday at noon on the West Coast, 3 o'clock on the East Coast. Still doing our regular shows, still doing our regular podcast, still doing our regular clips. Everything else is me and Soto, but we've added me doing a solo show on Tuesday, Soto doing a solo show on the weekends to kind of add some extra stuff and to make sure we keep doing live stuff because most of our stuff's pre-recorded because we want to starting to edit things more, try to add a little more razzle dazzle, a little more flash to our videos. So we weren't doing as many live. We're doing 2 live shows a week now. Hope you guys like it. And until then, knock on wood if you're with me.